Hello and welcome to today's video. So this is my January wrap up, and in January I managed to read all of these books plus an ebook, so like one more than what you can actually see here, and honestly I have no clue how. I really don't know how. I don't know. I did start off the month by just reading small little books, so that probably helped quite a lot, to be honest. And really excitingly, January is the month that I started doing weekly reading vlogs. So if there's any of these books that you want more information on or just want to see the process of reading, they'll be in one of the 4 January reading vlogs. So yeah, exciting, and I've had a great time doing it. So before we properly go through the books and what they are, let's talk about the actual reading month. So it went amazing. I don't know how it went amazing. It feels like I had no time to read, but it felt like I was always reading whenever I could. So yeah. In total, I read 17 books this month, and in pages, I read 4,200 pages, which is just crazy. I honestly don't know how. This is definitely not a normal reading month for me. Definitely in terms of books, it's not a normal reading month. And compared to last year and my total amount of pages last year, this is like double what I'd expect to see in pages. But I haven't had a proper reading year yet, so I can't 100% compare it, because I only really got back into reading properly around March, April time last year. So yeah, I'm excited. I want to get into this a bit more. So out of the 17 books, 1 of them was an ebook, 3 of them were audiobooks, and the other 13 of them I read physically. So pretty amazing, pretty happy with that. I think it went really quite well. And then in terms of overall ratings this month, I had 1 1-star, 3 3 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 4 4 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 3 5 stars. And the 3 5 stars all happened during the last week of the month, which I wasn't expecting. I will link that one, that reading vlog up here. I had a 3-star read and then 3 5-star reads back to back. Like, it was honestly amazing. So yeah, I suppose we should just get into the book. I'm going to do this in what I think is the order in which I read them. And I'm not going to talk too much about the book. I'm basically going to give you my rating and then what I thought. If the book was part of my official TBR game, my TBR Snakes and Ladders, I will also talk about the prompt they fulfilled for that as well. Starting off, book number 1. This was Convenience Store Woman, and this was for my TBR game, and it fulfilled the prompt literary fiction. So that's what that one was about. And yeah, I enjoyed this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. I didn't 100% sync up with it. I enjoyed the concept, I enjoyed the actual read, and I enjoyed our main character. But the reason it didn't get a higher rating was none of the side characters, none of the other characters except for the main characters felt like real characters. They all didn't feel fully fleshed out, and they also, the reactions and the things that they were doing and the things that were being said, I just didn't get. Like, I really struggled to understand that those would be like real conversations and real reactions to things. And I also really struggled to understand that these side characters, some of them were friends of the main characters but didn't act the way friends would. So yeah, the main character and the storyline itself, great, but the surrounding of that just didn't work for me. I didn't vibe with it, and for that reason I gave it 3.5 stars. Then next up I read Skellig, and this was a reread for me. I have read this one before and I gave it 4 stars. I still think it pretty much stands up. I had a few problems with it. There were a few problematic scenes with the parents, one of which, this doesn't spoil anything because it has literally nothing to do with the story at all, but at one point the dad makes our main character touch a dead bird for no reason. It doesn't impact the story, it doesn't change anything, like, it just happens. And I do think the way that the parents were treating the main character and how their storyline was very much like ignoring him to deal with other problems they've got going on, I just didn't like that portrayed in, like, this is a middle grade book, it is a book for children, and I think seeing a relationship like that portrayed as if it's normal could teach children that it's okay if their parents are ignoring them and treating them like that, and obviously that's not really the message you want to get across. But in terms of the actual story itself, the actual elements of it, the main character, the side character, the skellig, the thing, it's difficult to say a lot about this without knowing, because the back gives very little away, and I feel like we don't find out exactly what's going on until a good 3/4 of the way through maybe. So yeah, but really enjoyed it and I would recommend it. Then we had this cute little Flower Fairies of the Autumn book, and honestly it was great. It's really shiny, so I'm struggling. I might just shove a picture of this on top of it, but yeah, Flower Fairies of the Autumn. It's just like a little poetry book, and there's a poem for each of the autumn flower fairies. So for instance, let's flick to a random page. The Song of the Dogwood Fairy, and it gives you the little poem, and it gives you a little bit of information, and on every page there's also an illustration of that fairy. And yeah, it's cute, really enjoyed it. Very quick read, but I think it's really good. And if I see any others of this series, of the different like spring, summer, winter fairy things, I'll definitely pick them up, because I did enjoy this whilst reading it. And again, I did give it 4 stars for a little poetry book that, you know, it did what you asked for. It was a really nice poetry book. It all really came together well. When you were reading it, it kind of felt like songs, and like it was lyrically coming together in your head, like there was nothing to stumble over. Yeah, really enjoyed it, really great, 4 stars, and that was that. Then we had Evolution. Don't mind my relatively battered, bashed up copy, but this is now right. So this book was a reread for me, but I don't feel like I truly digested it all the first time. So I used to take books with me similar to this, like short books that had like relatively short pages, like short bits per PM, on the bus with me when I was going to work and back before COVID. And obviously I read it during that time, but it probably would have taken me a few weeks to get all the way through, because you just read when I'm on the public transportation. I would pick it up and read a little bit, and that would be that until the next time I got on it, sort of thing. So I just don't feel like I fully digested it, and I didn't fully take it in. There are definitely things that I hadn't picked up on the previous time that I read it, and I enjoyed reading it. Will I read it again? Honestly, I don't think so. But I did give it 4 stars. I did think it was really good, and I think especially if you kind of go in high school age, but anything also above that, this is said to be a expert book written for adult at college level. I feel like the Evolution taught you kind of knew quite a lot of this, so I think it just depends on your age, on your level of what you currently understand. And the only thing that I really had a problem with was this first page. A lot of the pages went really into detail, so like the Republic of Genes, and we really went into detail on all of it. But the first page, where it was more of the very like early introduction, what is evolution, who discovered it, there was none of the more controversial stuff, and none of the more like, this is how it's officially recognised, but also this is going on behind the scenes. And for an expert book, like an introduction book that's written by an expert for adults, I just felt like bits of it could have been expanded on. A lot of it was great, but there were bits that could have been expanded on. So yeah, that was that one. I gave this 4.5 stars. It was so close to being a 5-star, it just didn't quite make it. Just didn't quite give me the 5-star feels. But this was a really cute graphic novel. It's called Dinosaur Therapy, and it's just great. It's like a graphic novel for adults and younger, I would say, but like more aimed towards adults, of the struggles that happen during adult life that you have to deal with and that basically suck, depicted by dinosaurs. Every page is great, every page is lovely, and I know you just really like these dinosaurs and you really see it, and I think it was just done really well. It is split up into sections dealing with different topics. So we've got growing up, depression, happiness, relationships, stress, overthinking, anxiety, work, and then success and failure. And yeah, it was great, really enjoyed it, would 100% recommend. And I do believe that this is half price on Amazon at the moment, so if you are interested, pick it up whilst it's half price. Then next up we have The Lady in the Van. I gave this 3 stars. I don't know if that was too generous or not. My 2-star rating basically means I didn't enjoy it, I didn't really get it, I didn't like it, but I can see how other people could really like this and it could still be other people's favourites. Whereas my 3-star rating is like, I enjoyed it and it kind of felt like it was in between the two, so maybe I should have gone 2.5, but I must have been feeling generous that day and I went for 3 stars. This is about a very eccentric old lady who over time ends up moving her van into this man's garden and living there. And this is a non-fiction. This is real life, this really happened. The author, Alan Bennett, it's him. A lot of this is his diary entries from those years, and a lot of it was just like random stories that were remembered and different bits and pieces, and it was good. But I just had quite a lot of problems with it, honestly. Like, I can't pinpoint one exact problem, but there were just a lot of things that were a bit worrying, and I was just like, ugh. Like, if this was fiction, I think these things would be funny, but this is non-fiction, this is someone's real life. This person probably needed quite a bit of help, and I'm going to leave it as that because it is real life, and normally, honestly, if it's a non-fiction book written about someone's life, it normally always gets basically 5 stars from me, because who am I to judge someone else's life and what they're saying? Like, you know, obviously if it's like educational, I'll judge it, because if it's wrong, it's wrong. But like, if it's just about someone's life, I like to give it as high a rating as possible because that's their truth. Like, there's no reason for me to give it a low score, but there's just a lot of things I wasn't vibing with this, and I just, no, wasn't for me, I don't think. Then I caved. I was trying to be good, not buy too many books, but The Sad Ghost Club Volume 2 came out, and I think like the day after it came out I ordered it because I kept seeing it on Instagram and I was like, yeah, I do really want to read this. This is Volume 2, so it does follow on from Book 1, so I'm not going to go into detail about what it's about. Book 1 is about a sad ghost who finds another sad ghost and the Sad Ghost Club. Really enjoyed it, really great. If you enjoyed Volume 1, you'll probably enjoy Volume 2. I didn't think it was quite as good as Volume 1. It got 4.5 stars from me. I think Volume 1 got 5 stars. But it was still amazing, it was still great, still really enjoyed it. This one was done from a different perspective from whose perspective we saw in Book 1. And I enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed that change and seeing the world in a different way. So yeah, would recommend. And just quickly, let me find a page that isn't any spoilers at all. Okay, this one's got no writing on, so I don't see anywhere that there could be spoilers. But this is a sort of art style that you can expect to see within the book, and it's really cute and really lovely, and any more future volumes that come out I will 100% be getting. Then we go on to the first audiobook that I read this month, and that was Divergent. This was a reread for me. I haven't read this since, I think, pretty much since it came out, but I really enjoyed it. I listened to it on audiobook because I had a lot going on this month, and honestly, I wanted some audiobooks that I didn't have to pay too much attention to, and for me, I always go for a reread when that's the case. There were a lot of monotonous tasks to do, but they required a little bit of brain power, so I didn't want to have something complicated that I needed to pay attention to all the little details or anything like that. But yeah, I read Divergent and I gave it 4 stars. I think it still stood up pretty well to how I remember it. I think I probably did give it 5 stars at the time it came out. Obviously I'm an adult now, this is a young adult book, so it's not surprising that I didn't rate it quite as highly, but I still really enjoyed this, and as you'll see I'm still picking up the rest of the books and rereading those as well. So yeah, I enjoyed this. Divergent is about Beatrice Pryor. Basically, in this world, when you turn, I think it's 16, you have to pick what faction you're going to spend your rest of the life in, and then depending on the faction, depends on where it goes from there. Really interesting. Probably read it, or at least seen the movies, so I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. Then, a series that I'm kind of reading for the first time, but kind of rereading it because I can't figure out exactly where I stopped reading it the first time I read it, is the Morganville Vampire series. So, I read Fade Out, which is book 7 in the Morganville Vampire series. Now, going into this, I thought it was the first time I was reading it, and up until about the 80% mark I was like still thinking that, and then something happened that I remember happening, so I think I must have read this one before, so maybe this was a reread. I'm really unsure, to be honest. I read these roughly 10 years ago, and I don't know, I thought I'd stop reading after book 6, but maybe it's later than that. But yeah, I read Fade Out, which is book 7 of the Morgan the Vampire series, and I gave it 4 stars. It's great. It's a YA series, fantasy. It's about vampires, in case that's not obvious by the fact it's called Morgan for Vampires. Again, it's one I can't really talk a lot about because I'm on book 7. Book 1, we follow Claire Danvers, who is a university student just starting at a university in the town of Morganville, and she doesn't really know what's going on in the town. Things occur, she ends up moving into a house, she meets people, they tell her things that are going on in the town, they learn from each other, it moves on a lot from there. So much has happened by this point. Yeah, I really love it. I'm going to keep reading them. Then we had a bit of a different one for me, but this one is to do with my love of Gilmore Girls, and I read Talking as Fast as I Can. This is Lauren Graham, who is Lorelai in Gilmore Girls, one of the 2 main characters, and this is basically from Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls The Year in the Life of. This one also fulfilled the prompt on my TBR game of person on the cover. This is a person on the cover. I still haven't taken a picture like that, but I definitely need to. But yeah, this is the book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. Thought it was really good. I think if you enjoyed Gilmore Girls, if you enjoyed Gilmore Girls The Year in the Life of, if you like the tone, the characters, the people, and want to know a bit more about it, you'd probably enjoy this. The only problems I had with it, there were a few sections in here where it was talking more about the TV, actor, actress, like industry in general, and there was a lot of names being spoken about, and as someone who doesn't really know anything about that, I watch TV shows because I enjoy them, I was having to do a lot of googling. Like, a lot of names were coming up in one particular section, and I was like having to stop every couple of paragraphs and Google a name. So that's why it didn't get the full 5 stars from me, just because of, I think the audience of this is just people who love Gilmore Girls, not necessarily people who love the industry, I don't know if that's the right word, as a whole. So I think with names being dropped, maybe the person being spoken about should have been explained who they were or something, or I don't know. It could just be that that aspect didn't vibe with me. But yeah, it got 4.5 stars. I loved it. I love Gilmore Girls. I loved all the anecdotes, hearing the behind the scenes, knowing about the different actors who play the different characters and different things that happen that you weren't aware of. And yeah, I loved it. It was great. Would recommend. Then we have Insurgent. This is a follow-on from Divergent. I also read this one as an audiobook, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Wasn't as good as the first book, but still really enjoyed it. I'm not going to say anything else because I've already spoken about the first book. Then I read The Snow Spider. This was great, honestly. This was also for my TBR game, and this was read it this month or unhaul it. So I read it, I don't have to unhaul it. And the reason I picked this one out for that prompt is because this was a cover buy. I don't buy books when not knowing a lot about them often. I at least read them properly, but this cover was just so pretty. You can't really tell because of the lighting in here, but the cover is really sparkly and shining, and it's all in a spider web, and it's great. So I picked it up for that reason, and I'm really glad I did. I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. This is a middle grade children's book, so again, not aimed at me, but I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mystery, I enjoyed figuring it out, I enjoyed the world, I enjoyed the fantastical elements, and I thought it was a really good book. So yeah, I would recommend, especially if you're younger and the actual age range for this. I think it would be even better. Then there is a buzzword reading challenge created by Kayla from Books and Lala, and I wanted to do that, and I was really shocked by the amount of books that I'd already read that none of them fit the prompt for the month. So the prompt was the 5 W's, so like where, what, where, when, why. None of them fit that, so I picked up 13 Reasons Why. This was a reread for me. I had read it when I was about 14, which I don't know, honestly, looking back, if that was okay or not. Maybe shouldn't have, but I mean, I didn't see a problem with it then. And this got 3 stars on a reread. It was okay, it was alright. It is a bit problematic. I spoke more about it in the reading vlog that I read it in, but essentially it was an alright book. I had a good time reading it. I enjoyed the main character and the main character's point of view and learning things along with the main character, but would I recommend it? I don't think so. Then I picked up These Violent Delights. This was another one for the TBR game. This was flowers on the cover, so that fulfilled that prompt because there are flowers on the cover. This was amazing. It's my first 5-star book of the year. It was absolutely great. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in Shanghai in 1926. It's a duology. The second book's already out, but I can't find it in paperback anywhere, but I need to read it. Like, it ended and the ending was that good, it's like I really need to read the next book. Yeah, I really love this. I'm really glad I read it. There is the retelling element, there's a fantasy element, and the story and the retelling and how it's done, even though you can see the elements there and it impacts the characters, it doesn't feel like copy and paste. It's done very differently, it's done really well, and I've really enjoyed it. Honestly, I don't feel like I have much more to say about it right now, except for I really enjoyed it and I would 100% recommend it. It got 5 stars. Then after that, I'd got one more book on my official TBR, but it was another fantasy book, and going from one fantasy to another I wanted a little break in between, so I read an ebook. This was an e-arc, so it doesn't actually come out till I think it's the 7th of February, and this was Pangea, and this was great. It was a poetry book. It was honestly amazing. It also got 5 stars. It dealt with so many things, so much. It's about trauma, and it deals with loads of different types of trauma, and like self-inflicted trauma, trauma from other people, trauma from like the world, trauma from a country, like all this sort of stuff. It was great. I really loved it. I read it so quickly and it got 5 stars. The author of the book has got 1 book on her backlist as well, so I'm going to get that and read it because it was that good. I'm like, yeah, after reading that I will 100% pick up anything this author puts out. It was that good, so yeah. Then I picked up the last book on my official TBR, which was Winterkeep. This is book 4 in the Gracing Realm series, and this was a 5-star prediction for my TBR game, and it got 5 stars. It was great. Really loved it. Thought it was amazing. I can't say a lot about this one. It's book 4 in a series. What can I say? The characters, the amount of perspectives we got, all the new people, all the old people, how it all came together, the world, the new world they were exploring. It was all great. It kept me on my toes, it kept me guessing. Everything that happened, I was very happy with the outcome, but it also didn't feel too easy or too obvious. It all just rounded up nicely. And the way it ended, we could have so many more books out of this like world and series. That the open endingness whilst also very nicely ending everything that happened in this book, but leaving it open-ended to all these little plots that could happen. Yeah, it was great. Really enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars. Would recommend, but obviously don't read book 4 first. Read book 1 first. Then lastly, this is a book that I started during week 1. I thought it was okay, but I wasn't really enjoying it. I picked it back up the last 2 days. It's the 31st of January as I'm recording this. I finished this one today and I gave it 1 star. This is the War Poets, an anthology, and it's the Gerald Poets series. Not good. Didn't enjoy it. It was very repetitive, it was boring, and I know that it's meant to be about the war and it's a collection of poems, like some of which are from people who died in the war, like they never saw their work published. There's people who are like famous, there's people who are well-known poets, there's people where you didn't know who the poet was. The untitled works, there's unfinished work, but this is one that I think if you're really interested in wartime and what went on and hearing different people's perspectives, even though they're pretty much the same, you're probably going to enjoy it. And if you're really into history or really into war, you probably would enjoy this. But for the average person and just for a normal poetry collection, reading poetry, it wasn't it. So I gave it 1 star. It wasn't for me. Maybe someone else would enjoy it, but when I was reading it, I was bored, so that doesn't bode well with me. So yeah, ended on a negative note, but not a lot I can do about that. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Those were all of the books that I read during January, which is absolutely crazy. I have done my February TBR by now, so I will link that up above if you're interested in the books I'm going to be reading. And I am also going to be continuing the weekly reading vlog, so you can have more of an in-depth look into what I'm reading there. And they come out the day after the weekend, so very up-to-date, current, you know what's going on, basically within 8 to 1 days after it's happened and has been read, so you get my real thoughts in real time. So yeah, if you're interested, please do subscribe for more content like this. Like the video if you liked it, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.